Toastmasters, fellow Toastmasters, and especially to our guests, Justin, Ron, Jane, welcome this evening. Allow me to start with just a short story, okay? Just for a little chuckle. Imagine there was a physicist from Fermilabs that had a great insight, and he was asked to go on a lecture circuit sharing this new scientific discovery. And they assigned a chauffeur to take him from site to site to site. And it went on for several weeks. The chauffeur would drive him to one city, he'd get him settled, get him to his podium where he would give his speech, and the chauffeur would hear the same speech night after night after night. And it got to be so routine for him that the chauffeur said, you know what, I've heard this speech so many times, I could give it myself. The scientist says, well, would you like to take your chance? Oh, sure, I could give that same speech. And so on this given night, they switch spots. The scientist takes his seat in the front row, and the chauffeur goes up, and he does flawlessly give this physicist's story. He went through the entire presentation, and at which point someone raised their hand. They had a question for him.
Have you verified that your Lagrangian is relativistically invariant?
I believe I had another question I was going to ask.
Have you considered what those equations would look like in a non-inertial reference frame?
I don't think I heard all of the questions. There was a third question here.
Yeah, I don't see how your theory could be renormalizable. Have you considered what the two-loop corrections would include?
I can't believe you people. Such simplistic questions. Elementary questions from scientists like, why, this is so beneath me. My own chauffeur could answer this question. Why doesn't he come forward and he'll answer it for you? Liar, liar, pants on fire, nose as long as a telephone wire. Well, the source of my speech this evening, whether I'm your speaker or chauffeur, is that it comes from an insight that I have gained from a reflection about my own life and people in which I have counseled and offered spiritual guidance for. And it comes to a distilling of this single thought. You'll find it disturbing. We are all liars. We are all liars. In one form or another, we are in the lying business. Allow me to share what I mean by that. In one camp of liars, there are those that actually speak lies. Now, if you can imagine, in one camp, there's those that speak pure truth. And in another camp, there are those that tell liars. The Bill Clinton, I did not have sexual relations. There are the liars, and there are those on the other camp that tell the truth. And most of us would want to see ourselves as truthful, integral people. But what I suggest to you is there are moments in which we are just off of the center of pure truth, that we find ourselves in the shadows of truth. And they come in simple statements. Well, I think my tax form, I think my expenses were about, or a comment we make about a coworker or a friend, they're not right into the pure core of truth. They're just a shadow off. In some regards, there are those that speak lies, and we have found ourselves in those spots. There are those who I see as believers of lies. I remember as a kid, he got cooties, and we would believe it. But I remember hurtful things as a kid, one in particular, when I was maybe 10 years old, and I was running down the street, and this one kid stopped me and said, "You run like a nerd." I believed that. And for many years later, I always was self-conscious. Anytime I was in an athletic event, I was to believe that that was the perception people had of me. Now, I taught junior high, I was with kids for 34 years, and it is amazing the baggage that is carried from a comment that is made from another adolescent, another child. You're too tall, you're too skinny, you're too fat, you have freckles. Your eyes are funny. Your hair looks weird. There's a comment that's made that is believed. Even as adults, an offhanded comment can be taken too seriously, and we believe in lies. There's another group that I suggest to you that hear lies around them but do nothing about them, out of fear that it'll turn on them, or that they might be looked at as being self-righteous, better than another, that they stay silent to comments that they know are not quite true. There's too much fear of what could happen to them that they stay in silence, and lies get the perception of being true. A fourth group are what I call those that are lying fighters. They fight lies. They're willing to stand up and say, I don't think that you have the right idea there. I know Kristen, and that's not really who she is. There are people who actually stand up against lies.